Welcome to your Phase 4 training guide video. This training video will encompass things like how to understand the journey of a CPT code, managing payer settings, how to create a fee schedule, how to add insurance to a patient's file, create a HCFA form, post a new EOB. And this training is also helpful for clinics that may be cash-based but have to get insurance into a patient's file so that they can generate a super receipt to submit for insurance reimbursement. When billing insurance in Katana, it is very important to understand the journey of a CPT code, as the moment a CPT code button is pressed, it will instantly bounce off the price list to see what you charge for that specific service. If a fee schedule is created, it will then bounce to the fee schedule to see if any changes were made. And that indicates any kind of modifier, maybe adding to a specific CPT code, any insurance allowed amounts, so the system knows how much needs to be written off when it comes to what you charge versus what insurance allows. And then once it's gone through the fee schedule, if one was attached, then it will apply the correct amount to be paid into the patient's appointment, and then again onto their ledger. When getting started, the first thing you'll need to do is edit and manage your payers. To do that, you will go to Admin, Payers. You will be able to add any payer you need to bill for and tie to a patient's file by simply selecting Add. I'm going to pull up one payer that I've already entered information for by just selecting Edit to show you that you will need to edit and add any information in regards to that payer. So the payer name, their address, city, state, zip, phone number, fax number, and electronic ID if they have one. Once you're done entering in the patient's payer information, you'll go and move on to the Printing Options tab. In the Printing Options tab, it allows you to set defaults for that specific payer. These defaults do not carry over from payer to payer, as payer settings and what is required may be different for each individual payer. So we would not want to make everything a default because that could cause massive denials. So it is required that you go into each and every payer and set these specific printing options to prevent denials happening in the future. In the printing options, you have the ability to create settings for when you're billing this payer as a primary, as a secondary, or as a tertiary. You will also see the default in which the payer is going to be billed, so you can do it by either paper or electronic. You'll see the version of the HCFA form that this information will be presented for. And as you scroll down, you're going to see drop-down options available where you can actually click on specific settings for that specific box. So if I wanted to print same, if patient is the insured, I could go ahead and do that for box 4. There's also some options where you will see a box that you can click on and indicate whether you're printing individual other ID for the provider, group clinic other ID, information for a billing provider versus rendering provider. And then in some cases, you also have a selection that states if no billing provider is selected, use rendering provider's information, or you can leave it blank. Once you've made your proper selections, you would go ahead and hit save. You also have the ability to go to the scrubbing tab. The scrubbing tab will highlight everything in yellow that is a requirement to bill for this specific insurance. And again, you can set the levels for primary, secondary, and tertiary. If you happen to see a box that is highlighted in yellow that should not be, you can always click on it, and once it's made white, it is no longer a requirement. If you find that there's boxes that are already displaying as translucent or white, you can go ahead and click on those to make them a requirement. When it comes to billing for Medicare, Office Ally has instructed us that Medicare claims are seen in what they call loops and segments. So if your box 15 is not highlighted in yellow, you may want to do that for your Medicare payer, so that way when a date is required for their current injury date, it will transpose the 15 date into box 14. And again, this is just to prevent denials from taking place, so you don't have to wait on the time to submit those claims and then turn around, wait for a denial, fix them, and then resubmit. This is a way for the system to kind of catch those mistakes and catch what's missing so you can correct it now and then move forward. Once all your selections have been made, you can go ahead and hit save. And then now we're ready to tie this particular payer to a patient's insurance. But before we do that, I would like to go over how to create a fee schedule. To create a fee schedule, I'm going to go back to our admin section and go to fee schedules. I'm going to select the button copy from price list when I'm making a fee schedule for the first time for this specific payer. So I'll hit copy price list. It's going to default to the price list I have in my system, which in most cases, a lot of clinics have it as a master price list. You're going to select the specific payer you're going to work on, and then you're going to name the specific fee schedule. So in this case, I'm just going to say Medicare fee schedule and hit save. What this will do is it'll bring forward everything that we have on our price list. So every single CPT code and how much we charge for that specific service. If insurance has set forth an allowed amount, you can come in here and change whatever code is necessary. So maybe on 98941, say for example, with Medicare, even though you may, 98940 is the one I was going to work with. If in the event you charge, like on my price list, say $45 for an adjustment, Medicare will only pay some allowed amount that equals something like $26.85. This tells the system that even though you charge $45, $26.85 is what is allowed. So the system will do the write-offs that are needed to make sure that the responsibility to the charge is only $26.85, and it'll get rid of the rest. If you're happening to use maybe a specific CPT code that doesn't have a modifier currently selected on your price list, you can go ahead, go over to the three dots, add that specific modifier, and hit OK from the list, and it will display a little plus sign indicating that that modifier is now attached to that specific CPT code. And when adding that specific CPT code to the specific Medicare patient you're going to add it to, it will add the modifier. Once you've made your changes, go ahead and select Save. Now we're going to move on to adding this insurance to the specific patient. So I'll go to our patient Rolodex, select our specific patient, and go to the Insurance tab. Now I'm going to select Add, Create New Policy. You also have the ability, if a policy is already in place, to edit that policy, delete the policy, or reorder the policy if maybe you added in the primary as secondary and vice versa, so you can get them correct. Now I will hit Next. It's going to default to new primary because no information has been entered for this patient, and hit Next. In this example, I will use this patient as the relationship to insured, but you also have the ability to tie this patient to another patient in the clinic, a non-patient, and a company. Now I'm going to move to Next and select my specific payer that I'm going to work with. If you did not get the opportunity to go to admin and enter in your payers, and you're doing this for the first time, going through the steps, and you have the patient's insurance card, you can always go to Add Payer at this bottom right and add the information here as well. Once you hit Save, it will add it to the list of options. Once we hit Next, we will now enter the insurance ID number. We're going to select Relationship to Insured, we're going to tell the system if this patient has a copay, and then we're going to tell the system what the insurance percentage of covered charges are. So if the patient is only responsible for the copay and insurance covers everything else, we would go ahead and select in 100%. So that way nothing goes back to the patient, because the system will try to resolve 100% of the charge. So if we happen to say $25 is the copay, but only 80% is covered by insurance, then 20% is going to go back to the patient. If you're working with a primary and secondary, and amongst the two specific plans, it covers at 100%, then I would still go ahead and put 100% on the primary. So that way, when an EOB does come in from the primary insurance payer, you can move the remaining responsibility over to secondary, and it'll keep the balance off of the patient balance. Moving down, we're going to select whether we have a policy reset date. This will allow a new capture to be made on this specific date, putting all of the patient's policy limits back to 0 and start counting over. So if the patient has a yearly max visit, say of 12 visits, you can indicate that. You can also tell the system how many visits have been used. Maybe some of them were used in another office. You can also tell the system if a yearly max dollar amount needs to be entered. And then again, how much of that dollar amount has been used to date. You also have the ability to tell the system if the patient has a deductible, and then again, how much of the deductible needs to be met. This will again keep adjusting your ledger balances, because if the patient has an active deductible amount, everything will go towards the patient until either A, the deductible has been resolved as far as the $500 has been met, or you receive an insurance EOB telling the system that now payment is coming in for those specific charges. So even though Katana may think that a deductible still needs to be met, it knows that it was met somewhere else. If I want to apply a fee schedule, I would select it based on the one tied to that specific payer. And then if in the event my patient has benefits exhausted or has exhausted their benefits, I can select this date and then tell the system whether I want the patient to be responsible for the price list amount on which I charge, or the fee schedule allowed amount that was set forth by insurance. But in this case, because it's a new policy, we wouldn't be exhausting benefits. If you're generating insurance in for a patient, maybe you're just doing super receipts, you can always hold the HCFA. And this just tells the system that, again, you're putting the insurance information in, but you don't want to generate any HCFAs for them. You would tell the system if the patient authorizes the benefits. Is there another health benefit plan? And we're going to go ahead and select yes, so I can show you how to enter in a secondary. And then, do you accept assignment of the insurance payment into your office? You also have the ability to enter in any additional information when it comes to box 11, box 11B, box 11C. And then you also have the ability to fill in the box 9s area when using secondaries, but I suggest going and adding this in when you're actually working on the secondary policy, because then you can just copy and paste and add it in one time. If you're dealing with an auto accident, you can also add in the adjuster's name and phone number as well, and then hit next. In this case, because we are going to add in a secondary, I'm going to state create new policy and hit next. And then now I'm going to state new secondary and hit next. This allows us to create both policies at the same time and utilize the same start date, because if I finish out the primary payer and then go back in to enter in the secondary information, it will make me choose an additional start date because the first policy was created without one. So again, same thing. This patient, another patient, non-patient, and company. We're going to leave it as this patient. Now you can find additional details on tying another patient, non-patient, and company in the training articles that we've provided. This is just so you can see kind of how the flow takes place. So we're going to hit next. Now we're going to select the specific secondaries information. And again, you also have the ability to add the secondary in at this step. Hit next, and then again, do the same things. We can always put in 100%, but this information is kind of a data housing area, as the system is only paying attention to what was entered into the primary, because you'll see that there is no fee schedule box here and things like that. You can only tie one fee schedule to a patient, and these policy limits would kind of just be in place for your reference. So you will select the same options, and now we're going to select no because we don't have a tertiary insurance. And do we accept assignment? Yes. And then I'm going to copy and paste, and then I'll enter in the patient's name. And you can enter in their employer's information or school name and the insurance plan name or program name if you have that information. And then once you're finished entering in all of your selections, go ahead and hit next. And then once you're done, go ahead and hit finished, hit next, and then it asks you, when would you like these changes to take place? You have the ability to backdate insurance to cover any charges that may have been entered prior to you adding in insurance. So I'm just going to select July 1st, hit next. It says we are about to create your new insurance policy. We're going to select OK. A new snapshot will be created, and we're going to hit finished. This will also tell you that write-offs may or may not be removed based on adding in this insurance payer. So if you happen to add in a bunch of write-offs on your charges, and then now you're going in to enter in insurance, it will remove all your write-offs because now those charges are following a different protocol. So if this does show a figure here, you will have to go back in and add those write-offs back in to make your ledger appropriate and straight. So we're going to select OK. And now you will see nothing displayed here right at first. So I'm going to close out of this patient, open them back up from our Rolodex, and go back to the insurance tab. And now you will see all the information that we populated. And if you want specific information, you can go to the specific tabs. And this is also where you would add in an authorization code if an authorization code is needed to bill this specific insurance. If you need to do that, you can just select add, put in the authorization number, the start, the stop date, how many visits are allowed, and how many visits have been used, if any have been used with this authorization number, and hit save. And the system will know to alert you once their authorization is over and a new authorization is needed. You also have the ability to create visit trackers that would track those 12 visits, indicating again that you need to receive a pop-up stating that you need to call for a new authorization number. Now, this is the point of the video that if you are a cash practice and you just needed to enter in insurance for a patient where you would be generating a super receipt, you can go ahead and stop this video, as we're now going to go into how to create HCFA forms, posting an EOB, and then showing where that information is housed. To generate a HCFA form, we're going to go back over to our Katana toolbar and go to Billing. Now we will select Create HCFA. In this window, you have the ability to select specific defaults and specific filters if you would like to generate just specific types of claims. I personally don't suggest getting too crazy with the filter options, because sometimes we've seen on support that if you choose, say, Medicare as the case classification, your Medicare patient may have been selected as general insurance instead of Medicare, and they would be excluded from these claims when you're trying to generate them. The system will always default to all, so all clinics, all providers, all classifications for case types, and all payers. It will also default to all unbilled charges and all patients. If you want to select a specific patient, you can definitely do so by selecting an individual patient, hit the select button, go to your specific patient in the Rolodex, hit open, and now instead of combing the system for every patient that needs to bill, it's only going to look for those charges for that specific patient. You also have some different filters like combine multiple dates of service on a HCFA form, create a separate HCFA for each date of service, automatically put dates of service from different years onto separate HCFAs, and things like that to make your billing customized to your needs. Once you've made your selections, you will hit next. And you can see that nothing generated, and that's because I have 2 listed here, and that means that my claim did not pass scrubbing. So to see what went wrong, I can click Print Report, and it will generate letting me know the person's name, which in this case we're only generating for 1 patient, and tell me everything that's been missing. So in this case, the box 3 patient birthday, and then it's also giving me parentheses telling me where to go to correct the issue. So again, box 3 patient birthday, box 12 patient release of medical info signature, and date of current injury. So now it also gives a date right here indicating the appointment date in which I need to address that issue. So I will close out of here. And now I'm going to go to my patient, which they happen to be pulled up. I'm going to go to the patient file, add in their birth date. Now I'm going to go to the case tab so I can enter in the release of medical info date. And we'll just say it was their appointment date, but you would enter the date of when this was signed. Select save, and then it also pointed me towards my appointment. So I'm going to go to my appointments tab, go to the specific date, and hit review. Once my appointment comes up, I can actually see that the date was entered here. So I must have selected the wrong date. So I'll check out of this one, go into the next appointment. And now you can see where the date is missing. I took out this date so I could show it to you on the scrubbing form, but if it was added on the very first date of service, it would carry over from visit to visit. So it would actually be here. You would select the specific qualifier you need and then check out once those changes have been made. I'm going to close out of my patient file, and now it's still showing me that 2 is selected. So I'm going to hit the back button, and then I will hit next again. And then now my claims have generated. It's defaulting as electronic because that's what I selected in the payer settings. If you happen to see something where an electronic claim is selected as paper, it would look like this, and you can manually change it to electronic, but I definitely suggest going back into admin and payer settings so you can select the specific submission type so you don't have to keep manually changing it. If I want to take a look at my claim, I can hit the view box and hit view claims down at the bottom right, and it will allow me to see all of the data that's going to be sent off for payment. This also gives you the ability to check and make sure everything is there. Like in this case, I don't have anything selected. I believe this is box 31. So if your clinic information needed to be presented there, you could always X out of here, fix that, make sure that your payer settings say to print that information, and then regenerate. Once I have everything the way that I want it, and again, I'm going to take off this paper, but if I left paper on here, I can actually show it to you. Once I hit next, it's going to generate both, which normally it wouldn't do, but I wanted to show you that if paper is selected, your printer box would actually come up so you can stick a HCFA form in your printer and hit print so the data gets transposed onto that HCFA form. But if you're generating by electronic claims, then you'll actually see this window showing you that print images are waiting to go out. So for the very first time, we will actually minimize Katana on the background. I'm going to take this little bitty folder icon and drag it to my desktop. And this gives me the ability to have access to these print images because they are coded into your database and not easily accessible. So you would now right click that folder. You can rename it to whatever you would like. So in this case, I'm going to say Katana Billing. And I always suggest adding this specific submitted claims folder by right clicking, select new, and hit folder. And this allows you to always know what needs to go out and what has already gone out. So once you upload your claims to your specific clearinghouse, it will keep a copy here always. So you, once you've uploaded those claims, you can grab it, drag and drop it into submitted claims. And then, like I said, you would always know what needs to go out and what has already gone out if you ever need to go back and review those. But just keep in mind, Katana does keep a log of all HCFAs that were created. So if you choose not to keep any of these, that is totally fine as well. So with that being said, I'd like to show you where HCFAs are housed. So I'm going to go back to my Katana database. I'm going to select Finish so it locks in those HCFAs. And now I'm going to go in my billing area to search HCFAs. This area also allows you to filter for specific types of HCFAs that you are looking for, but I'm going to go ahead and leave it defaulted to all and then leave it as today's date because today was when I created those HCFAs. I'm going to select the Apply Date Filters button, and it's going to show you an exact replica of the HCFA that I generated. So with this, I have the ability to either e-claim or I can print this HCFA form. But again, this is a direct replica of what I just created. So if any new data goes into your system or anything like that, then you would not pick up that new data. This is just a reprint of that prior HCFA that was generated. But I also can click on it and hit view if I wanted to see the details of that HCFA. And the other place I can go to is back to my Rolodex, back to my patient, go to the billing tab in my patient's file. Under the HCFA subtab, it also shows you a copy of the HCFA generated. So it logs each and every HCFA that you generated in your Katana database, either A, underneath that search HCFAs area, or in the patient file directly. Okay, so the last thing I would like to discuss on this video is EOBs. So first, we're going to post a hypothetical EOB so you can see the process by going to Billing, Post New EOB. We're going to select a posted date. So this is the date received into the office. Now, just keep in mind that this date can be backdated. So if you received an EOB on Friday afternoon, but you didn't have the chance to post it and you're going to put it in on Monday, you can definitely backdate the post date back to Friday because that's when you actually received it. And reports like your collections income reports going to log when the action actually took place and when the posted date is. It will also update your day sheet. So if you backdate the posted date to Friday, then you would need to relook at your day sheet because it will update providing that information. We're going to state whether the EOB was provided via check or credit card. If we're doing credit card, we would select click to add credit card, add in the information from the credit card, but this is not processing the credit card. This is just adding the data so your reports and your records stay straight. You would actually have to go to your merchant and post the payment in their payment processing site or something like that. Like if you're using Fortis, you would go to the virtual terminal and run it because you want to run that payment outside of Katana. And the reason for it is because we're logging this information. It looks like we did receive the credit card, but if we posted it again, say as like a patient payment, it would duplicate that amount. So again, go straight to your merchant and process it outside of Katana after it's been logged here. But I'm going to go ahead and do this one as a check. So I'm going to enter in my EOB check number. I'm going to say the date on the check. So if the posted date's the 10th, the date on the check might be the 6th. We're going to select the insurance payer that is making the payment and how much this is for. You can also add any notes you need in reference to this payment. You know, if there was anything provided on the EOB statement that you need to record, you can definitely do this here. It's really helpful when doing refunds and recoupments and things like that to basically log why that happened. So we're going to hit next. Now, when it comes to posting an EOB in Katana, you have this attached files tab. If you want to scan your EOB into or onto your computer and save the file, you can upload it by selecting add, upload that specific file, and then it will always be password protected. It will be inside this EOB. And even if you go to view this EOB later, you can always have access to the original to check and see if there was any discrepancies or anything like that, if somebody has a question, and then you can shred the original EOB you received. So I'm going to go back to general. I'm going to grab my specific patient in the Rolodex and hit next. This screen has you select the specific date of service. So you can either click on the calendar to pick the specific date. You can hold your control button down to select multiple dates that are on that EOB, or you can simply drag your mouse and it'll highlight a specific area. But basically, once you have your selections made, hit the Apply Date Filters button. It's going to bring forward any date of service that is associated with the date range you have chosen. Once you have this view up and it's showing the dates of service you want to work on, you can always go in and post using this spreadsheet view. So you can just tab along doing what you need to do, indicating that there's a payment. You can change primary O's, so on and so forth right here, or you can scroll all the way to the right, click on this pencil, and manually do it here as well. So it all depends on what works best for you. In this case, I'm going to say that a $20 payment was received. So I'm going to move my responsibility to $685 on the patient side. I'm going to put $20 on primary because primary came in and paid that. And you will get red exclamation points if the math is not correct. So if maybe I want $685 to go to secondary, which is a more likely scenario, I can definitely do that as well. And the amount you're seeing right here when it comes to $26.85 being the total amount of the charge, that is because the fee schedule states that $45 is what you charge for the office, but because of that fee schedule we added in, it gave a fee adjustment of $18.15 equaling $26.85 as responsibility. If I created my fee schedule incorrectly or I'm not using a fee schedule, I can manually use this area to adjust my fee adjustment area as well. So if say you're not using a fee schedule and your EOB presents that a specific fee adjustment needs to take place because maybe the full amount of the charge is not allowed, then you can go ahead, add that in here. It'll adjust the charges, giving you that full total. And what's nice about not using a fee schedule is the system will remember it for that specific CPT code. So when you post an EOB the next time, it'll know that this was the fee adjustment you entered in, basically like a stored memory. So now that we have our responsibility moved around the way we want. We can go ahead and select payment. And you'll see down here where it says balance that we're at a 0 balance. Now, if I was to move this responsibility around to say all of it was Medicare's responsibility to pay, but they didn't, and I post that $20 payment, you'll see that $6.85 is left to be resolved. So that is when I would decide, okay, does it go to secondary? Does it go to patient? Do I need to write it off entirely? So if I need to write it off, I can definitely come in here, type in $6.85, give my write-off reason, and then hit OK. And once you add that amount in here, it goes again back to 0. So once I hit OK, this line item is now going to change color to this soft blue. So that way you know that this charge is 100% resolved. Anything in white here hasn't been touched yet, so you can definitely address that issue. Or not necessarily issue, maybe you grabbed a data service incorrectly or something like that, but it just shows you that you're not working with it. So now if I come down here, because this also took place on the 8th, so now with this charge, because we didn't receive payment on it, if we want to tab through here, there's no fee adjustment, primary owes nothing. We're actually going to say that this was maybe a denial, because you do have the ability to select whether it's a payment or it's going towards their deductible or denial. And then we would just tab through, because again, the system knows exactly what should happen with this specific charge. Nothing is left owed for primary. Everything goes towards patient owes with this specific line item. Then again, it's going to turn blue. We got one more. And maybe in this one, primary actually owes $35. They didn't do anything with it. It wasn't stated on the EOB. We just moved the responsibility because it should have been their part. This one is now changing to a different color because it shows that primary owes, but nothing happened with that specific charge. If in the event you're doing that and there was a payment, it would change, but obviously now it's saying amount applied at the very top is 55, which gave an amount remaining 35. I wanted to show you this so that way, if in the event you ever have a discrepancy with the check, maybe it was inputted incorrectly, you can always select this blue hyperlink next to the total check amount, change the amount, because maybe they did give me a $55 payment, and then now everything else balances out. So you've got $55 was the amount of the check, 55 was amount applied, amount remaining is 0. Once I'm done making all of my selections, I'll hit next. Now it will ask you if you want to complete the EOB, but maybe you have somebody on here that goes where it's strictly deductible. You can always hit no to go right back to your Rolodex and enter the next patient that's on that EOB. If you become busy, you can always hit save on this bottom left-hand corner. It'll ask you if you'd like to complete the EOB, check yes. If you would like to complete the EOB, no, if you'd rather come in and process the rest of it later. So we're going to hit no. And now what that does is it takes it to this in-process EOB section. So now you can see the EOB we were working on. Hit edit EOB. Come back in, make your changes, which there really isn't any changes I need to make. But I'm going to hit next. I'm going to say yes, I want to complete this EOB. It's done. And now once I come out of here and go to completed EOBs, now you would actually see the completed EOB housed under completed EOBs. Once my EOB is in the completed status, I can go to my Rolodex, go to my patient, go to their ledger, go to the payments tab, and down here at the bottom, it also houses the specific EOB that came in for that patient. Even if there was multiple patients on that specific EOB, it will still copy it to every single patient that was tied on that EOB, so you can have quick reference. So we would just hit the EOB selected or listed, and then it's going to bring open that EOB. If I want to look at the specific patient, I would click on them, hit next, and then it's going to show me a breakdown of their charges. If I hit cancel and I hit yes, it just basically saves it in the state that it was in. Thank you guys so much for attending this training, and I hope you have a wonderful day.